Okay. I think I really have to make a video on this one. Normally I don't do this stuff on my channel because I don't like to go into politics. More on Twitter, but not really on YouTube. It's not even really politics, you could say. It's more like something in general that basically hadn't happened and has happened, which is how fake news really happens, you know? Like, you always have people behind fake news that very much believe that what they are writing is real. Like, very rarely you have people that are like just lying out of their teeth. Like, they are still like committed reporters, so to say. But they become cheats, you know, they become cheaters because they learned that this is an easier way to get along, you know, just fake your articles and all the crap that's inside it. And that's what actually has happened with the Spiegel, which is a German newspaper, like akin to Time, Newsweek, and papers like these, you know, that like come in once a week, and they have like big articles, like big feature pieces in them. They're basically like Vice offline, I would say. And they run in the same problems basically as does Vice, for example, and it's the fact that they try to write as poetically as possible their articles. And this was happened here with like Klaus Velutius, which is like the Spiegel employee who decided to cheat for years. And for his cheating, he got recommended. He got the German Reporter Prize. He got many more prizes. So he was a very famous reporter that other reporters looked up to what they want to achieve. But as it turns out, it was too good to be true. And the thing is, people didn't realize it was too good to be true because they wanted to believe. It's like literally everything is pretty much made up. It's just the general idea is just there, but everything else is just put together, you know. It's like written off from different articles. It's like stolen from Vice and other random blogs, you know, like whatever snippet of information you can get, he's going to take basically in order to make it up that this is like a real thing, because this could be like a real thing, you know. Like, for example, it was like in America, in order to report from the border, you know, and you showed like a town, I think, what was the town called? It was basically like a town where he like made up that there was like a right-wing militia, but the militia does exist, you know, and there are definitely people there that want to keep the border safe and so on and so forth with the usual stuff. But he decides to make the story more believable because the reader is going to come in here and think, okay, this is German people, and they're going to think, okay, this is America, south of the border, you know, these are going to be like, these are going to be racist people basically that are going to be sitting there, you know, like bigoted people, you know, like still Jim Crow and stuff like that. And instead of like really painting a correct picture of these people, what really like motivates them, it's more goes like back into tropes basically, and what people already think is true, so they are not basically cheated. So he basically said that the town has like a billboard in front of the town name, like put right next to it, where it says Mexicans go home basically. And that's, again, like he said, that was in this article. He said that the town people did this so people already knew what to expect from here and so on and so forth, you know. And he was like making up that the children got like told, you know, what to write, you know, in school, and two people were like writing, like they were supposed to make like the American dream to be seen basically. And two people made like pictures, like two children made like pictures of Rockefeller, like two other children made like pictures of Barack Obama, but all the rest made pictures of Donald Trump, you know, because this is like realistic in a certain way that people expect it to be, you know. And it is very sad to see that this is like what's happening, you know, like it basically tries to manipulate people through emotion, and it works really well. Like, it's kind of really funny because I used to read like an article on him, like not on him, like from him, and I just couldn't read it. I went like half a page and I just couldn't take it anymore. It's just so tear-jerking. It's just so over the top. You just, you know, you just couldn't believe it basically, just out of the bank basically, because it's just so detailed and so stupid, mundane decisions, you know, like he tells how people breathe, how they walk upstairs, that they always listen to the same song over and over and so on, the same crap, you know. And this is pretty much what these people like, you know, but you can see how many prizes he has. This is obviously in German, but he got like 4 German reporter prizes. He got the Peter Scholl Latour Prize, which is apparently a big thing, the Konrad Duden, the German child support help, the Catholic and Coburger Media Prize, and lots of other crap. And he even was, and this is the most interesting part, like we're going to say that CNN is fake news altogether, you know, like, there's definitely some fake news in there. There's a reason why people are mad, but it's definitely overblown, over the top. But it definitely shows itself here that CNN made him the Journalist of the Year. But even more than that, he got the European Press Prize, he got the Williams Liberty Award, you know, he got so much more. He got on the Forbes list on 30 under 30 Europe media, you know, like a really hot shit basically. And he went to this and said how great he is, so to say, you know, like how happy he is to get this prize for his work, you know. And like the way it worked is like he wasn't like a person that was like super bragging about himself, and then in the end he was more like just doing his job, you know, like a really good reporter who did his job and who wasn't over the top or anything, you know, who was like well liked because of that by his colleagues. Like he didn't let this success become into his head. Instead he just continued to fake, you know. Now the question is, why do people fake stories? So why would somebody do this? Like I said, the premise in totally, it's like in certain senses is correct, you know. Like for example, there's like a lot of like there's a story here, for example, which is super tear-jerky. It's about the Syrish boy who made like a graffiti in order to insult the president of Syria, and apparently that like caused all the Syria war to erupt. And he was like talking to this guy now how it all ended, and again it's very tear-jerky, and he like, the reporter like said that he had like access to him via WhatsApp, and he was like making WhatsApp calls and so whatever, you know. But the thing is, it was all claims that were made by him. Like you couldn't confirm them whatsoever. You can easily confirm this. Like you can record your iPhone screen, your Android screen without any issues, you know. There's no reason that you cannot record it and show them, yeah, I had this phone call, this is what the phone call said, you know. And if this information says confident, you cannot say, oh, this is going to be a problem for whistleblowers, they're going to get outed. No, that's not going to happen if you just use this information for internal review and after that you delete it, you know. But that's not what happens basically. So basically, like the system that Spiegel has in place in order to prevent fake news is that they try to make the surroundings of the story sound correct. So for example, they said if the writer says the town is 1 hour car drive from this city, and they confirm that this is really true. But what they don't confirm is anything that the reporter says, claims that happened with the victim that he talked about, the experience and everything, the interviews he did, the transcripts he made, you know. All of this is basically in the reporter's hand to deal with. And this is why this basically was so easy and so possible. It's because you could just claim he had an interview with this right-wing militia, for example, who never saw the guy. They never saw him whatsoever, you know. But he just claimed he had this interview because he wanted really to make this story happen, you know. He didn't want to give up on the story because the right-wing militia isn't really open to outsiders and goes inside and talks to the press very often, you know. And if they do, they want money, they want more, you know, and they're not going to tell you anything you really want. That's the main problem, you know. Like, they're not going to tell you what you want. Like, he wanted to hear from the people, we love Trump, we hate Mexicans, we want to kick all the foreigners out of our country, you know. Basically simplify it as simply as possible in order to manipulate then the person and the reader through emotions, basically. And that's what all of these pieces do. And this is like the main issue that journalism basically has, is that as soon as journalism tries to appeal to emotion, there is a huge, huge problem there, you know. Like, you have to stay neutral as a reporter, like 100%, even if it's like things that are super heinous, that you totally disagree with, 100% emotionally, morally, and ethically. It doesn't matter. Like, you cannot let your own bias basically get into the story, you know. Like, so you have to make sure, like, if you see, oh, Trump is kicking people out and abusing them, then you report on that fact, you know. Report on the fact that these people feel abused and what is actually happening. You don't say, I personally think our country is going down the hill. Like, it doesn't matter, basically, you know. But this is what people want, you know. It's the same basically with Syria and all this other crap, that people want to believe that, oh, this country is going to be the worst shit happening possible. There's a lot of horrible shit happening, but the problem again is it's not about focusing on the right things. Instead, it's focusing on the individuals. They want to see a victim individually and see what they think and what they do and how they do it, really. Instead of having the general idea that people in Syria are going to get enslaved, people that are going to flee to and get stuck in Libya, for example, like, have a very high likelihood of getting abused and getting sold even as slavery, you know. It's like IS sex slaveries and stuff like that. Like, this is basically what is very much known, you know, like, we know about this. What people want, they're like bloodlusty, they want to have people tell them what to think. They want to know what to think. It is very, very important to them that they know what to think, you know. It's the same thing here, for example. Like, this was another one where he went, he like took another reporting, you know, and he had like a woman as a picture. He always makes like pictures. You don't even know if these people even exist. Personally, I don't think this woman actually goes to the executions in the US of people that are going to be put to death, you know, as a death penalty. I don't think she even exists. I think he just took a random picture just to have something to put in his pictures, you know, in his articles, basically. And everything surrounding it is just completely made up, you know. That's pretty much what it is, you know. Like, the fact that all of this is, if it's true, yeah, most likely it is true in the sense that there are most likely people that are going to be visiting these executions are going to send by as general citizens just to see. But the problem is, how did this get passed, you know? Like, I can understand, like he said, oh, this woman had to be staying anonymous, you know. I can understand that request. But the problem with that is that there's so many ways you can prove internally that this woman exists, you know. This is just no problem whatsoever, you know. Like, you say, obviously, okay, we're going to confirm your identity, but we're not going to tell it in our article. That would be the way to do it, you know. But the point is, he was able to get all the way with this, with these lies, you know. He was like saying, okay, these are basically people that are lying, not for the reason that you think, but they're like manipulating because they see no other way to become forward, to make the best article possible. Because you're not going to get to close as people as he basically claimed to have gotten to, you know. And this is why he always made it up. Like, for this woman, for example, who goes to his executions, he made up the whole story about her, basically, how she uses the bus drives and she hates like riding in the middle seat, so always sits at the window and she clenches her fingers really tight because she becomes sick when driving the bus. And then he tells about the story of her child and his son basically dying in a robbery gone wrong, and her husband dying of cancer, and all of this crap, which is all 100% made up, you know. And it's even more most likely 100% made up. So the only thing that basically most likely is true is that this woman basically somewhere in this situation most likely exists. And that's the only thing that really is real about these stories. It's the same thing with Syria, for example, with the children that get forced to become like brainwashed into becoming like suicide bombers. They also get like, they do exist obviously, because we have suicide bombers obviously, and we have people that get caught before doing the suicide bombing attack, you know. But getting to these people and getting access to these people is totally something completely different. And even then, I don't even think we should even like think about doing that, really, because in a certain sense we try to basically make excuses, you know. Like, we like to make excuses why children can be brainwashed to become terrorists and stuff like that, you know. And it has to be very, very touchy, and it has to go to the soul, you know, to make them believe that they have like no choice whatsoever. And the problem is basically that people aren't this like faulty, basically, you know. Like, we're very clear, and when we decide to cheat, we cheat. The problem is we're like dishonest about it, and this is the problem with this reporter. He could have written like mediocre articles, like not even mediocre, just good articles, and it would have been totally fine, but he wanted it all. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, this guy cannot like say, oh, he was under stress, he had to work so hard, and he was like struggling to get the story going, so he saw no other chance of cheating. No, he abused the system willingly. 100%. He saw that he was getting away with it very easily. He saw that he didn't have to work as hard, nearly as hard. Most likely he is a more lazy person, you know. He doesn't work that hard actually. Instead, he tries to take corners wherever he can. He cheats because he's willing to cheat. And this is something that cheaters also do. They always claim they had like no choice. They were like in stressful situations. They saw no other way than cheating. And that's all bullshit, you know. That's all 100% bullshit. You always have a choice. And that choice is so obvious and so clear. The reason why they don't take it is because they themselves are just horrible human beings. You know, they don't care about other people. They care about themselves. They care how they get along. And this is what this guy does, basically, you know. He cheated because he could cheat, because there was a system in place that allowed him to cheat, because there was actually no system in place. The system that was in place to make sure that this cannot happen was way too lenient, especially to people that were successful like him. Like, the guy that was supposed to fact check him, they had a really good relationship going on, you know, and that's a really big problem. That's like having an anti-doping person basically getting friendly with the players that he's supposed to test, you know. It's a big problem, and that's basically what happens here, you know. Like, there's a lot of trust basically put into reporters that they are not going to lie, you know. This is basically like this idea. People are not going to lie. Why would they lie? Lie on the internet? Nobody would do that. And that's basically the issue you have right here. They think that they can trust people. The problem is, you cannot trust people. And I guarantee you, especially at the Spiegel and every other newspaper, it doesn't matter what political affiliation it has. Obviously, the right-wing media is more open about lying, but the reason why they are more open about lying is for the same reason why we have lies here. This is just the lies are better hidden on the liberal-leaning newspapers, basically, you know. They're basically done in such a way that they're not as open to the reader as they are in Fox News, where you can be more open about your lies because nobody cares anyway, and especially because your viewership and the people that read it, they only come for the headlines, you know. You don't become to get informed by Fox News, they come in order to get the facts like confirmed. They're not even confirmed, they're like their confirmation bias. They want to have their confirmation bias working. It's the same with liberal people, basically. Like, if you get all your information from this media, you have a big problem, you know, because this is just not the information you can get from that, you know. The information you really want is as pure as possible and as neutrally as possible, so you can take your own conclusions out of it, but you read what actually happened and not what some people claimed has happened, you know, what interview they make up. It actually happens very often. I can guarantee you that many interviews are just most likely made up, you know. And I mean, I guess you can look at how many people cheat, like in sports, or like admit to cheating in sports, like doping and so on and so forth. And you can take that number, and I think you can apply it to every part of life, and it's going to hold true. If there's like a possibility to cheat, at least a certain amount of percentage are going to take up on that possibility, because it's doable, because we can do it, we are going to do it, you know. This is what people do. If they get a chance to cheat, they will take the chance to cheat. If you can look at the classwork, so we have a class with multiple children, they're going to write a test. But it's very easy to cheat. You know, like the answers have been lying around the teacher's desk one day before everybody saw it, and now they can make a decision to cheat or not. And in that situation, most people don't have the morals to not cheat. Instead, everybody's going to cheat, you know, like nearly everybody. There's a few people who say, no, I don't want to cheat, you know, I want to get my grades the real way, you know. Like, I have cheated in my life at tests, definitely, because of stress and multiple other reasons, you know, but these are just bad excuses. They're not even excuses at all, they're just reasons why we do it. That doesn't make it okay, you know. I feel very bad about the fact that I used to cheat on one text, like I've one French test 1 year ago where this actually happened. Where the results of the test was already laying around before us, you know, and we were just, everybody was pretty much jumping on it. We had like one guy, I guess, who was like the egghead, you know, who decided not to cheat, you know, but he would have gotten an A anyway, so, but this is pretty much what it is, you know. So you have people cheating because they can cheat, and especially in journalism, the main issue is that they trust each other way too much. We trust journalism way too much. That's another problem. That doesn't mean that you have to deny everything and have to call everything fake news and don't think about it being true. But what you have to do is you have to be able to make sure that you only read articles and information and take it as valid when that article and that information is brought to you in a very neutral manner, without judging, without giving you, without trying to manipulate your emotions, without doing anything of that. It just gives you the cold hard facts. That's the only way you're going to get informed. And the sad part about this story is, like, I have written here so much about how he was like, oh, we had no idea, we could have never known this, we would have never known this ever, you know. But there was this guy basically that got him down, basically. It's a very similar story that most people have, that are like whistleblowing, they're like calling out people that are cheating, you know. They're sick and fucking tired of it because they died the hard way and they get fucked over. In this case, it was a guy called Moreno, who was the guy who actually got him. They were like supposed to work on this story from the militia, basically. The right militia at the border, and he couldn't work with the guy because he apparently didn't like him whatsoever. Like, imagine why. But basically what came out then, after he was like placing his article, he was like really unsure that this guy actually did what he claimed to do, because he stopped working on the story with him together. He just couldn't do this headpiece together with him, you know. So on his time, he decided to travel to the country and like make sure that he actually meets the people he claims to have met, basically, like the journalist has claimed to have met, basically, and he made videotapes about them. Have you actually seen this guy? And they say, never ever. I have never seen this guy. And that's pretty much what got the stone rolling. But in the beginning, he had a really big problem getting his investigation started. He was like calling out before that and says, this is suspicious. You know, he said, like, do you really believe this? Like, can we even like confirm this? You know, like, what's even, like, how we can even like say this is even true? You know, like so many stuff basically that like didn't make any sense. Like, for example, that billboard, for example, on the outside of the town. You know, And he wasn't making this up, you know, but he was like always like able to spin it, you know, to his advantage by saying, oh, well, it was a very difficult, but like he was making himself basically human by saying how difficult it was to gain entry to this world, you know, and how hard and difficult and so on and so forth. And like he manipulated basically the people to support him in a very easy manner by basically making himself humble, you know. That's how he did it. And for quite some time, Moreno was the guy who was like getting a lot of flack. He was getting a lot of hate just for the fact that he was daring to attack this like amazing reporter, you know. It was just like some asshole trying to smear some shit on this amazing reporter because he's like envious of his amazing work, because he clearly is not as successful as the guy with multiple works, basically, and like multiple reporter prizes and so on and so forth. But in the end, what you can tell from this is that we have no blind system in order to check media. Like, we have some fact checking, but the problem with fact checking is that it just checks facts. What it doesn't check is the actual ability of the stories that sometimes get a lot of money, basically, a lot of going, basically. It's like basically like Vice journalism. Like, if you go to vice.com, which is like pretty much everybody at this point can... Please don't do that. That's not very nice. Maybe if I change the language like this. Goes to the German side. It doesn't go like that. Let's try Google. Vice.com. English. Right. But yeah, Vice.com is basically like the perfect example, you know, where you have a lot of people writing articles, you know, like this kind of freelance journalism, which are like super detailed in so many ways, where you have to say like, how the fuck are they even this able to be this detailed, you know? And very often it's that they're actually not, you know, like it's just basically made up, you know. There's like many things where you have this happen, you know, where you have like Vice stories which are not adding up to what they are supposed to be, you know. And that's what we very often have, you know? So we have stories that are not what they are supposed to be. That's pretty much what it is. And the same thing is happening at Vice. And if anybody like judges or like dares to like go against one of their best head writers, you know, and say this guy, like his stories, they don't make any sense, you can guarantee your ass that the guy who has made this allegation, he's going to get completely bullied out of the company. There's no way of him basically surviving. So you have to be able to have the resources and the luck that you find the hot smoking gun. Because if the guy says, oh, he had this informant he was talking to and he was telling him this and that, like, how are you going to be able to make sure that you're going to get him outed? How can you make sure that this guy is going to be seen as a cheater? If he cheats very well, what are you able to do then, you know? Like, if his details, like if it's interviews that he makes up, like they are very made, you know, like the people he does these interviews with, they're like super hard to reach in a country where you cannot easily travel to, you know, because there's no freedom of speech whatsoever. Like, you have to go to Syria in order to make sure that this story actually is true. Then you have a big problem. Like, you cannot fucking get him in that case, you know? And that's why he was able to be gotten, is because he wrote a story in America about these people that actually existed in a certain way. And that was what made it possible, basically. It would not have been possible if it would have been any other story. Like, guaranteed. It's also the fact that he was lucky in this case that he had to write it with another guy, basically, you know. And not just an interview and a photograph that you can easily manipulate because they don't know what's going on, basically, you know. But yeah, this basically means that over 60 pieces in the Spiegel and Spiegel Online has been like basically faked, you know. And it's just German journalism, obviously, and this happens in many other newspapers. You could take any other newspapers. There are many more where this is like much more obvious that they are like cheating and faking it, you know, because they have to. You know, like right media obviously can do this very easily. Like, we can go to Breitbart.com. and we can find lots of information that is just here plainly wrong, you know. This is not very difficult whatsoever. And this is basically the bias that we were talking about, you know. This is pretty much what it is, you know. That's what's important. Like, literally they have here like an article about Sweden, which is like their favorite country to hate upon, because this is like an easy thing to hate upon, you know. And they turn basically Sweden into a hellish country where people are getting slaughtered and very, very difficult to explain even, you know, like a feminazis, hellish hellhole where people and so on and so forth, you know. But basically the point is, Sweden obviously has problems, but the simple reality is that these problems exist in any country really, and even more that overall the migration makes Sweden very, very successful, you know. It doesn't mean that you have to take in anyone, and I don't have to ask any questions, you cannot criticize these people, but it's basically like a very silly, very silly amount of things where they like try to focus on. For example, this here is like a very good article where you can see them just lying basically. Obviously, this is not going to be wrong because it's a headline, you know. Like, how can this headline be wrong? But the simple reality is there's like one factoid they just leave out, and it's the simple fact that in Sweden they actually try to do something against rape. Like in many other countries, this is like something that people don't talk about. I've been raped as a child, you know. It was pretty bad, you know. But the problem is, it took me years and years to talk about it, just to admit that this even happened, you know. And seeking justice is something completely different. But in Sweden, they actually tried to make sure that people actually get hurt, you know, and they had like much more possibilities on rape charges being available, you know. It's just what it basically is. So you can, people are easier to get their rights basically, like men that are getting raped, they have much easier time to get hurt upon, because in other countries, for example, if a woman rapes a man, it isn't considered rape, because only inserting your penis into the vagina is considered rape, for example, you know. It's all of this crap basically, which like Sweden really, really, really made sure that it gets taken serious. And because of all of these societal changes where people actually try to make and do something against sexual violence, obviously we have more people reporting about it. And that's a major, really important thing that gets pinned here into something bad. And you see how well this worked. You see how well this worked, really. You see how well this worked. And you have a lot of comments here which are very hard in confirmation bias because of that reason, you know. They don't try to do anything against rape. The only thing they try to basically do against rape is to make sure that their opponent is the one who's causing it, you know. And again, all of these articles here are trying to focus on the negatives as much as possible. And when the negatives are coming, you don't even know if like anything of this is really true. Like any kind of interview, for example. Like for example, this here, Swedish left-wing party takes action over Islamized youth party. That's very doubtful that there's any really truth about this, you know. That's pretty much what it comes down to, you know. No-go zones, that's another thing really they talk about a lot, you know, and it just doesn't exist. And you have to ask yourself, how can they lie like this, you know? Like, you can go anywhere into Sweden, you're going to be 100% fine, I guarantee you. Like, there's actually zones in America where you're much more likely to have something happen to you. Poverty. But this is not really the thing about this. It's like basically bipartisanship which is happening here, which is why they're lying. They have an incentives to lie, so they do it. And the same is happening on the left, like with Vice, basically, where you have people try to write the perfect story because they have to make the perfect story happen, because this is what people want, you know. People want the perfect story, and for that it has to be perfect, you know. It doesn't have to be neutral, it doesn't have to be anything, it has to be as over the top as possible. And this is what happens basically with these headpieces, basically. For example, they try to make Mitt Romney into Johnson's great nemesis. This is something where I would say, like, huh, really? Are you fucking serious? You know? Bloody Mitt Romney, he has been politically dead for years and eons, you know? He's not. But this is what they have to do because their readers are going to hate Trump. So they have to make sure that they try to make sure that people hate Trump and they get the news they are waiting for example. And Mitt Romney, like, when he was running for president, oh my god, he was bloody hated, you know? Like, he was completely dead after the election, and he's dead now as well, you know? Like, it's pretty much what it is. Just because he doesn't like Trump doesn't mean that he has really the power to do anything against him, you know? And it's basically the news that these people want. It's the same with Breitbart. It's similar here, but it's just that here, the lies, they're more hidden, basically, you know? Here, for example, the lie is hidden behind that there isn't great next nemesis, which is just a complete hyperbole. But there's also, like, most likely the lie in here that they're just going to try to make sure that people believe the stuff that's written here. Like, Akri Andri should be Trump's next chief of staff, for example. That's just an absolute stupid thing, you know? Like, why would you write an article like that? And it just continues and continues and continues, you know? Like, with pictures like these, you make sure that people get manipulated, like, emotionally and everything, you know? And this is another thing here, like all these Medicare stuff, which is very important, obviously, that the United States finally gets like universal healthcare. But the problem again is the way this gets pictured. They manipulate the people by putting pictures of the protests in front of it, and it's very, very obvious that this is happening, I mean, the same thing is happening here, basically, by making sure that something that is bad gets blown up way out of proportion in order to make a bigger point out of it, in order to make more panic out of it. And this is basically what's happening with all of this, basically. And also with this case, where a guy tries to write as emotionally as possible. It's trying to infill the panic on people, basically. It's trying to make it sound like Islamists can basically turn every innocent child into a suicide bomber, which is just not true. And it's the same thing with America, that in Arizona there are going to be people in the south of the border, next to the border, which are going to be so super racist that you cannot do anything against them because they're like so super racist. But again, that's not true, Like obviously there are racist people, nobody denies that, but the simple reality is not all people are racist, far from that, Like these countries are not like getting votes of 99% Republicans or whatever they think they are, It's like much more than that, like it's 70% Republicans and 30% are still Democrats, and many more Republicans, they aren't actually that much bigoted, they may be just misinformed, but it just basically takes the goodwill away and it paints these people as bad, as villains, And this is what's happened all over media, that everything gets painted as the villain he is instead of the person they actually are. And the same thing is happening with Trump, Trump is far from the evil they make him out to be. Don't get me wrong, he's a corrupt man, but the thing that they really ignore and really completely blew over the fact is the fact that Trump doesn't have that much power. Like, he's the president of the United States, which is supposed to be the most powerful country of the land, with the most powerful office in the land. But the simple reality is, Trump is incompetent. He's not as competent as the media makes him out to be. He's the far opposite of it. He's actually incompetent. But the simple reality is, they have to make sure that the viewer believes that this is our danger, this is our great menace of our time. So they paint him in the worst picture as possible, even though they don't even have to do that. Just show him as the incompetent person he is, that he already is when you look at it neutrally. If you look at it neutrally, Trump hasn't achieved a lot at all. Like, actually, it's pretty bad when you look at it. Like, the debt is out of control, there's many other things that are very problematic. Like, as soon as the bubble is going to burst, there are going to be some serious problems, obviously, and the debt, like I said, it's a big, big problem. And so many other reasons, like, obviously climate change, which is something that we can neutrally agree on not being a good thing just because it's not good, like we have to do something about that because we don't know what's going to hold in us. Obviously, it doesn't mean that we have to panic and we have to say, oh, we're all going to drown in 50 years or whatever. But I think what really has to change is the simple fact that we have to make sure that people understand the danger by making sure the danger is presented neutrally instead of trying to panic people, This is what's basically happening. They try to panic people into believing something is a really big danger. It's the same thing with ISIS. It's the same thing with Islam. They try to turn people into panic-stricken monsters that really, really, really are afraid of everything, even though they don't have to be. Like, we don't have to be that afraid of climate change. It's going to be pretty bad in many situations and for many countries, but it basically comes down to the fact that this is already bad in itself, Like, the change is bad because it's going to affect many animals, it's going to affect many, many countries. It's maybe not going to affect us directly in the same way that we're going to die because of this. This is not going to happen. It's going to affect us in the way that we're going to irreparably change our world, which is not a good thing, Like, I would like to have the world stay similar, and that the nature stays the way it is, and that we don't kill any more animals than we already have killed, That's just human decency and what we really want. But instead they try to manipulate you in making it like a doomsday device where you have to be afraid of it, which is not going to work, And this is why change doesn't work. Change only works if people are willing to do it because they are convinced by it, and not because they are like fearful of it, Like, nobody bought an electric car because they were like fearful of causing the pollution or whatever, and even then, like, buying an electric car might not even be such a good idea, The best idea was walking, taking a bike, or taking public transport, But even that, like, it doesn't matter because we don't care about like solid solutions, we just care about panic making. It's the same like now happening with the diesel engine, for example, and combustible engines. It's the same similar thing. You make panic in order to try to get people to force to stop doing this, but it does the opposite. It gets people to not change because they don't see a reason to change, because they are not manipulated that easily by this stuff, because they just don't understand where is the risk, basically, you know, like where's all this danger, like where's the danger from the diesel engine, what's it going to do to us, you know. The simple reality is people don't see the problem because they cannot see it, because the problem that gets told to them is completely blown out proportion. If they would have been told what the problem actually is, they would have been more willing to change. You know, if we would have told people we are always standing in the bloody traffic jams, you know, we have big problems with the traffic jams, cars are expensive, fossil fuels are difficult to extract, the CO2 from it is very, very dangerous, you know. But the problem is, this is not what it basically said. Instead, now it's basically about the fact that the diesel engine has been turned into the menace that it is. It's the same thing that's happened there at VW, basically, why they decided to cheat on their engine tests. It's the same thing. People cheat if they can. And in this case, they cheated because, again, they were under stress. They weren't able to keep up with the goals that were put on them. They had to produce, the cars had to produce less and less CO2 over the years. And the technological advantage just didn't keep up with that. They just couldn't. So they saw no other chance than to cheat, instead of saying, well, you guys, we just cannot do it. It's impossible. Like, we cannot fulfill this goal, you know. Like, we're not going to get these cars clean. It's just impossible, you know. We have to go for a different idea here, you know. And obviously the different idea is to have as little cars as possible, but that's not what's happening, you know. Instead, we try to manipulate people by emotion instead by logic. And this is why this happened. This is why all of this happened. And this is why they had to write so much again, because again, they tried to make it up by logic, you know. They tried to make it up. Like here, example, this article in the beginning here, it's EU lässt Britain in den Abgrund schauen, which basically means the EU lets the British people see into the abyss. Which is just a horrendous headline. It's just absolutely fucking horrible. This is completely blown out of proportion, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it's written here because, yeah, we have to write it. I mean, I guess thanks for watching, everybody. I just had to do this video, even though I really don't like to do political stuff, because this is a really huge scandal. 60 made-up articles, and this is just one of the cases that we got actually known. You know, the cases that we actually know about, which is really not actually that much, because you have to think about it. For everybody who cheats, there are going to be hundreds of journalists that still haven't been caught, you know. They're still cheating at this point, but they haven't been caught. It's because we are not honest.